Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, questions swirl about the president's orders to resume nuclear testing. President Trump back in Washington, pressed to explain his surprise announcement that the U.S. will resume nuclear weapons tests for the first time in more than 30 years.
I'm Rachel Scott reporting here in South Korea, where the president met face-to-face with Chinese President Xi and explaining his rationale behind that decision.
At least 1,000 flights canceled and thousands more experiencing delays thanks to inclement weather in the Northeast. New York City's subways flooded and streets turned into waterways. Where's the weather heading next? An extraordinary announcement from Buckingham Palace in the wake of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. King Charles takes action against his younger brother, Prince Andrew, stripping away his title of prince and forcing him to move out of his Windsor home.
I'm James Longman outside Buckingham Palace with more on today's historic news.
It's just days until New York City voters decide who'll be their next mayor. Candidate Andrew Cuomo, no stranger to political races, sits down with me to talk about why this fight is so important to him and New York City. You've described your relationship with Donald Trump as a dysfunctional marriage. If you are to win, what do you think that next chapter looks like in this relationship? And ABC's very own Deborah Roberts is here to discuss her new book about the fun and sometimes complicated relationships between sisters. And we're joined by a very special guest, my sister.
Oh my goodness. You see what? No, she needs to
I've never heard that.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're following several developing stories tonight. Prince Andrew will lose his royal title. Buckingham Palace announced late today that King Charles has decided to strip his brother of his royal honors, home, and name, all in the wake of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And food stamp benefits could halt for millions of Americans this weekend due to the government shutdown. The Senate won't meet again until Monday, extending the shutdown until at least its 34th day. We'll have much more on all of that, but we do begin with new questions for the White House after a surprise announcement. Moments before meeting with Chinese President Xi in South Korea, President Trump posted on social media that he had ordered the Defense Department to resume nuclear testing immediately. Trump's comments upend decades of American policy. The U.S. last carried out a nuclear test in 1992, but this comes as Washington's rivals increasingly expand their own arsenals. The announcement raises concerns that it could restart a nuclear arms race with Russia and China. Here's our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott.
Tonight, the White House was pressed to explain President Trump's surprise announcement that the U.S. will resume testing nuclear weapons for the first time in more than 30 years. The president revealing his plan just minutes before his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, posting, "Because of other countries' testing programs, I've instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately." On Air Force One, he was asked, why now?
It had to do with others. They seem to all be nuclear testing. We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. You know, we've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Russia tested a nuclear-capable torpedo on Tuesday and a nuclear-capable missile last week. But those tests did not involve detonating actual nuclear weapons. The U.S. has conducted similar long-range missile tests for years. The president did not indicate how this new plan would be different. Tonight, Vice President J.D. Vance offering no details.
Does he mean the warheads themselves, the distribution, the missiles, and so forth? What's your understanding of these?
Well, I think the president's truth speaks for itself. We have a big arsenal. Sometimes you've got to test it to make sure that it's functioning and working properly.
President Trump's announcement threatening to overshadow his much-anticipated meeting with the Chinese president to negotiate a truce in the trade war he started.
Overall, I guess on the scale from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12.
China promising to end its boycott of American soybeans and to crack down on fentanyl. In exchange, President Trump lowering tariffs on Chinese goods coming into the U.S. from 57% to still a hefty 47%. China also agreeing to lift restrictions on selling the U.S. crucial rare earth minerals necessary to power everything from smartphones to cars, but only for 1 year.
Rachel Scott joins us now from South Korea. So, Rachel, how is Russia responding tonight to Trump's desire to restart nuclear weapons tests?
Well, Russia says what they carried out, Lindsay, was not a nuclear test in any way. The United States and Russia are among several countries that currently have a moratorium on nuclear testing. And tonight, the Kremlin says that if anyone deviates from that moratorium, Russia will respond accordingly. Lindsay.
And today, the Pentagon announced another military strike on a suspected drug boat off South America. This is the 14th strike and the 6th in the past week. Critics say they're illegal and a misuse of the military. Today, the administration briefed lawmakers. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Lindsay, this is the 14th strike, killing dozens of people overall. And Democrats left this classified briefing really frustrated. They say that the administration needs to get congressional approval before they carry out any military action. In fact, in a matter of days, they're going to try and force a vote on that very issue, saying that the president cannot carry out strikes on suspected or alleged drug boats without getting approval from Congress first. But this is also frustrating Republicans in the Senate as well. Many of whom say that they are wanting more information about this, including what the legality behind the president and the administration's decision to continue carrying out these strikes, Lindsay.
Rachel Scott for us from South Korea. Thanks so much, Rachel. And for more now on President Trump's order to resume nuclear weapons testing, I'm joined now by national security expert and author Joe Cirincione. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. A lot of your work focuses on nuclear nonproliferation. What, in your view, is the danger of restarting nuclear tests?
Well, the United States currently enjoys an advantage in nuclear technology, nuclear knowledge. We have conducted over 1,000 nuclear tests since the very first in 1945, more than all other countries combined. So we now use that knowledge to use our advanced supercomputers and other techniques to simulate nuclear tests, to model nuclear tests. We don't need to explode these nuclear weapons anymore. If the president is serious about this and starts nuclear testing again, other countries will undoubtedly follow. Russia, as you just noted, will start testing again. China's only conducted 45 tests. They would love to test again and break the moratorium. India, Pakistan will soon follow. The president may have inadvertently started a dangerous new phase of the nuclear arms race that we're in currently.
If the U.S. does move ahead with testing, more testing, how would it work and where would it take place?
Well, first, you can't do it immediately. Our nuclear test site in Nevada has been shut down for almost 20 years. The scientists there estimate it would take a good 36 months to open it up again and do nuclear testing. Now, this testing in Nevada is fiercely opposed by the people who live in Nevada, people who live downwind from these previous nuclear tests and have suffered severe increases in cancer rates and other health problems because of the nuclear tests we've had. You've seen the representatives, the senators and the representatives of Nevada come out strongly against this proposal. It's not something you can do immediately. It's certainly no political, scientific, or technical reasons why we have to start testing again.
Of course, there are levels to this. Tell us about the difference between flight testing and explosives testing and the difference between strategic and tactical weapons.
Right, exactly. So the president seems confused about this. No other country right now is doing explosive nuclear testing. In fact, in this century, no country has tested nuclear weapons except North Korea, which conducted 6 nuclear tests. So the president, and that's one of the reasons they're considered a rogue nation. They're the ones who have broken the international norm. So what you have seen is people testing delivery vehicles, some of the missiles you see going off right now, things that could carry nuclear weapons, but of course don't in tests. The president seems to think a nuclear test might involve a missile or a bomber. And of course, we do the same thing. So everybody's doing that. The difference between a tactical and a strategic nuclear weapon is basically one of range. The weapon is the same size. You get the same size blast, but it's whether you're delivering it over a few hundred miles, or in the case of the United States, you're getting intercontinental ballistic missiles that can travel 6 or so thousands of miles to reach their targets.
How do we know that weapons function correctly if they're not tested?
Well, because of the data we've done and because the number of tests that we've done, we have a very deep scientific basis of all this. And we continue to do tests of the mechanics of a nuclear warhead. We test everything except the actual explosion. That we can simulate with our supercomputers. And we conduct what's called subcritical tests, small amounts of nuclear material that we test before it can go into a chain reaction. We shut it down. That's permitted under the treaty. Scientists at the national laboratories have certified for years, every year, that our nuclear weapons are safe, reliable, and effective. We don't need to start blowing them up again. We know that they work.
Joe Cirincione, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Next tonight, it is now day 30 of the government shutdown. More than 40 million Americans will lose food assistance benefits this weekend. Food banks are now bracing for the sudden rush. Democrats, meanwhile, are fighting to keep Obamacare subsidies in place, saying health care premiums will skyrocket if they give in. Jay O'Brien is on the Hill digging in a little deeper. Hi, Jay.
Lindsay, day 30 of the government shutdown now, and the impact's getting worse by the day, and the collision course now coming for two critical issues here. SNAP food assistance, federal food assistance for some 42 million Americans, set to expire on Saturday. Food banks already preparing for a rush. Americans telling us they feel powerless. Some don't know how they'll be able to feed their families. Meantime, also on Saturday, Obamacare open enrollment begins. Democrats say they've been holding firm during the shutdown to get an extension of Obamacare tax credits to prevent premiums from skyrocketing for some 20 million Americans. And many Americans telling us tonight they're seeing their premiums potentially double, if not quadruple. Later on, Lindsay will introduce you to dozens of Americans we've met, what we call the voices of this shutdown, who are living the impacts of this standoff up here on Capitol Hill day by day. Lindsay.
Thanks, Jay. And of course, as Jay just teased, he's been traversing the country, hearing the personal stories of how the loss of pay, food, benefits, and health care tax credits have so many of you on edge. That's coming up in just a little bit. A royal bombshell from the UK tonight. King Charles is stripping his brother Andrew of his title and evicting him from his royal residence. The punishment comes amid growing pressure in the wake of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Andrew will now go by a new name. Our chief international correspondent James Longman is outside Buckingham Palace.
Prince Andrew will no longer be a prince. The extraordinary announcement tonight from Buckingham Palace, pushed out of the royal family over his ties to the late convicted sex predator Jeffrey Epstein. King Charles stripping his brother of all his titles. He will effectively no longer be royal, something that has not happened in more than a century. He's also being kicked out of his royal residence. It's a scandal the palace has not been able to shake.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew?
Just this week, the king heckled over it. Late today, the palace releasing a 3-paragraph statement saying the king initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew, adding the prince will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The palace saying formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease on Royal Lodge, where Andrew has lived for more than 20 years. The palace statement ending, these censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. Andrew once hosted Epstein, Harvey Weinstein and Ghislaine Maxwell at that sprawling 30-bedroom mansion, seen here at an 18th birthday party for Andrew's daughter Beatrice in 2006. The Epstein scandal raging for years, with Virginia Giuffre alleging Epstein trafficked her for sex with Andrew.
He knows exactly what he's done.
A claim he denies.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
This, the notorious photo, the soon-to-be former prince with Giuffre at Maxwell's home, presented to him in this infamous 2019 interview, which backfired spectacularly.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have a bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Andrew claimed that photo was fake. Giuffre ended her life in April, but her recent memoir refocused attention on the case. In a statement tonight, her family saying, today, an ordinary American girl from an ordinary American family brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage. Adding, today she declares victory. We, her family, along with her survivor sisters, continue Virginia's battle.
And tonight, Lindsay, the palace says their thoughts and sympathies are with all and any victims of abuse. But I think the big questions going forward are how far the palace is willing to go in helping the police in any future criminal investigations. Lindsay?
James, quite a development. Thanks so much. On this Halloween Eve, some frightening weather is sweeping up the East Coast. In the New York area, heavy rain flooded roads, instantly leaving drivers stranded. Coastal flood warnings and advisories were issued from the Outer Banks all the way to Long Island. Winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour, taking down huge trees. Fallen trees wiped out service to New Jersey Transit's coastline today. The quick-moving storm is snarling air travel. So far, at least 1,000 flights canceled and more than 4,000 were delayed today. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, officials are still assessing the damage left in Hurricane Melissa's wake. In Jamaica, 13,000 people are currently in shelters tonight. The storm killed 30 people there, but officials say they'd expect that number to rise. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg is with us for a look at where this dangerous weather is heading next. Lee, first, what can we expect from the storm that's hitting the Northeast tonight?
So that storm's now moving up through southern New England. You know, New York City not designed to handle more than 2 inches an hour with rainfall, and we had that on Thursday afternoon. Flooding, some gusts over 50 miles an hour, trees knocked down, and that's now moved into southern New England. So we'll deal with that. I-84, the Mass Pike, I-95 with coastal flood alerts for minor to moderate coastal flooding, and again some winds to 50 miles an hour. So that will lift into northern New England overnight with some heavy rain. And then for Halloween, the Northeast, a lot of the Northeast dries out. There'll still be some wraparound rain and snow showers interior Northeast. The problem will be the wind. It will be a blustery Halloween for the Northeast. Some wind gusts over 40 miles an hour right down to I-95. There are wind advisories. Melissa's a Cat 2 hurricane. It races by Bermuda. They get brushed by some bad weather during the overnight. Then it's off to Newfoundland as a post-tropical storm. And we thankfully say goodbye to Melissa. Lindsay?
Thankfully, indeed. All right, Lee, thanks so much. A JetBlue plane flying from Cancun to Newark made an emergency landing today after experiencing a drop in altitude, leaving several passengers injured. The flight landed in Tampa, Florida, where some were transported to the hospital. The weather in the area was calm, and the pilots told air traffic control the injuries were due to a flight control issue.
We have a flight control issue. We've got at least 3 people injured. Seems like maybe a laceration in the head.
The Airbus A320 has now been grounded while the FAA and JetBlue investigate. There was emotional testimony today from the first-grade teacher shot by her 6-year-old student in Virginia in 2023. She revealed what she felt the moments after she was shot, saying in court today, "I thought I had died." Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Former first-grade teacher Abby Zawerner today on the witness stand, recalling the dramatic moment when a 6-year-old boy in her class pulled out a 9mm handgun and shot her.
I thought I had died. I thought I was either on my way to heaven or in heaven, but then it all got black.
Zawerner describing the surreal scene.
My next memory is I see 2 coworkers around me and I process that I'm hurt.
The former teacher's dramatic testimony came in the final stage of her civil trial, laying out her $40 million lawsuit, alleging that a Newport News school administrator ignored multiple warnings from staff that the boy had a gun that day. Body camera video showing the immediate aftermath of the attack. The bullet damaged her hand before entering her chest.
It went past the heart and just barely missed it.
The defense claiming that the former assistant principal followed school protocol and is not responsible for the attack. And they suggested that Zawerner is not as injured or as homebound as she portrays.
Ms. Werner has told the jury that she can't use her hand, and she's become a cosmetologist.
Revealing that she's attended cosmetology school, which requires the use of her hands. And they noted that she's gone to a number of concerts, including Taylor Swift.
Pierre Thomas joins us now. Pierre, what's up next in the trial?
Well, the defense is expected to start calling witnesses on Monday, Lindsay, as this often emotional trial continues.
Pierre Thomas for us. Thanks so much, Pierre. 2 years after the overdose death of Robert De Niro's grandson, New York City police have arrested 5 suspects accused of distributing counterfeit prescription drugs laced with fentanyl. Authorities blame the suspects for at least 3 deaths. Here's our Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, new arrests in the overdose deaths of Robert De Niro's grandson and the daughter of Blondie co-founder Chris Stein. Federal drug agents say 5 men supplied these fentanyl-laced pills that killed 19-year-old Leandro De Niro Rodriguez and these pills that killed 19-year-old Akira Stein in New York in 2023. The same year fentanyl killed 2,400 people in the city alone. Federal prosecutors say the deadly drugs were supplied by a network that preyed on teens using social media platforms, including Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram.
This touches everybody, touches every type of family.
And tonight, Leo's mother posting this tribute on Instagram.
You can't spell love without Leo.
Chris Stein posting the new arrests give him hope of some justice for his daughter. Fentanyl deaths are decreasing, Lindsay, down about 25% so far this year. But we heard from authorities today they still have a lot of work to do to stanch the flow of fentanyl from American streets. Lindsay?
Aaron Katersky for us. Thanks so much, Aaron. French police say they have 5 more people in custody in connection to the jewelry heist at the Louvre, but there's still no sign of those crown jewels. Authorities say the suspects left traces of their DNA at the scene during their dramatic getaway, leading police to raid several locations in and around Paris overnight. The chief prosecutor has suggested if the stolen jewels valued at more than $100 million are returned, there could be some kind of plea deal with sentences reduced. The Trump administration will restrict the number of refugees admitted into the U.S. to 7,500 more than 9 months after the president suspended the nation's long bipartisan refugee program. No reason was given for the reduction, a dramatic decrease from last year's ceiling of 125,000 set by then President Biden. Priority for admission will be given to South African Afrikaners after President Trump launched a refugee program for the group in February. Trump said then that South African farmers face discrimination and violence, an allegation the South African government denies. The administration also moved ahead today with plans to block some public servants from student loan forgiveness based on ideology. New rules give the Department of Education expanded power to ban organizations from the public service loan forgiveness program if their work is deemed to have a, quote, substantial illegal purpose. The policy is aimed primarily at organizations that work with immigrants and transgender youth. The Trump administration said it's necessary to block taxpayer money from lawbreakers. Critics say it turns the program into a tool of political retribution. Still ahead tonight, with just days to go until the hotly contested New York City's mayor race, I caught up with former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo today to talk about what's at stake.
You've described this election as a civil war within the Democratic Party. So what does that mean if you don't win?
Plus, it's day 30 of the government shutdown, and we sent our Jay O'Brien to talk with some of the federal employees, troops, parents, and business owners who say they are getting hit hard. And later, taking the plunge to save a runaway dog. It is just days until New York City voters decide who will be the next mayor of New York. But if you ask the candidates, the implications of this race extend far beyond New York City. We got a chance to talk with former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who now hopes to be the city's newest mayor. Here's part of our conversation.
You've described this election as a civil war within the Democratic Party. So what does that mean if you don't win?
Well, there's no doubt in the Democratic Party, you have a far left movement that has been growing in strength over the past years, right? Let's say over the past 10 or so years. And that far left movement is basically fighting the quote unquote moderate Democrats, the more mainstream Democrats. They have a more radical agenda. And I don't think it's a radical agenda that works. I know it doesn't work for New York City. And I don't think it works for the Democratic Party by and large.
You grew up in New York City. You've described yourself as a Queens boy. What does New York City mean to you?
Oh, New York City is the epitome of America, right? New York City is the laboratory of the American experiment in democracy. New York City was the stepping off place, literally, for so many. But if there is one place that represents the promise of America, the principle of America, inviting people from all across the globe, come to one place and join our community, that is New York City. 190 languages in our school system, right? And the density of New York City. So it's 8.5 million people from all over the world, and you're on top of each other. And you can be on one block and there are Hasidic Jewish people, and you go to the next block and it's Caribbean cuisine, and you go to the next block and it's an Italian community. all living on top of each other. And yes, it creates tensions and we bump into each other once in a while, but we make it work. We make the American dream work.
You talk about this being a stepping off point. Just yesterday in an interview about Mamdani, you referred to that he spent a lot of time in Uganda, that he's a dual citizen. You went on to say he just doesn't understand New York culture, the New York values. As you know, he moved to New York when he was 7, grew up in New York, went to New York City schools. Are you suggesting that because he's an immigrant that he doesn't understand New York values and culture?
No, you can be a New Yorker and not understand New Yorkers, right? He has been very divisive through this campaign. He has said things that are highly inflammatory. And that's not the New York way. Because you have the diversity that we have, you have to be very careful as a leader not to inflame divisions. So he calls the NYPD, for example, racist and wicked and corrupt. President Barack Obama, evil and a liar. He won't denounce globalized intifada, which is kill Jewish people. We have the largest Jewish population in New York outside of Israel. And these are very inflammatory remarks. He has a colleague who he associates with that says, America deserved 9/11. America deserved 9/11. 2 New Yorkers who we lost 3,000 people on 9/11, 150,000 people suffering from 9/11 related illness. That is a terrible thing to say, you know. That's what I'm referring to when I say he doesn't get the New York value system.
On a recent radio show, you brought up 9/11. What if another 9/11, God forbid, were to happen on Mamdani's watch? The radio host then said he would cheer. You responded and chuckled and later said you didn't take it so seriously at that time. But how do you respond to the Muslim New Yorkers who were offended by that and described that your reaction as Islamophobic?
Well, the Muslim community didn't say that. I was just endorsed by major leaders of the Muslim community. What I was saying is he is inexperienced, right? This is basically, if he wins as mayor, it's basically his first job. He was a rapper, an assemblyman for 2 terms. He only passed 3 bills, and he was absent more than anyone else. So being mayor is a complicated job. It's 300,000 employees. It's a $115 billion budget. And it is a situation where on any given day, you can deal with any unknown crisis. There's a difference between an executive position and a legislative position. You know, if you're a state legislator, you vote wrong on a bill, nobody dies. You're a mayor, you're a governor. They can walk in any morning and say there's a mass murder. There's a building collapse. Yesterday was the anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. We lost 50 people during Hurricane Sandy, even though we did everything we could and we were prepared and we had the swift water rescue boats ready and special high axle vehicles. Still, we lost 50 people. There could, God forbid, be another terrorist attack. There could be another COVID. There could be another Legionnaire's disease. And that person has to be ready. There is no on-the-job training. So yes, dangerously inexperienced for mayor of New York. I believe that.
Our thanks to Governor Cuomo for the conversation. Much more from our in-depth interview will air at 8 p.m. on All Access and streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. Coming up, the details on the recall for a blood pressure medication millions of Americans rely on and why Billie Eilish is taking America's billionaires to task. Welcome back, everyone. It is now day 30 of the government shutdown. And tonight, we'll introduce you to the people who are living the effects of it day in and day out. The federal employees, the military families, parents, and business owners who say they simply cannot go without their paychecks, food benefits, or the tax credits that have made their health care more affordable. Our Jay O'Brien reports now from Texas, Virginia, and our nation's capital.
It's just a lot of stress and anxiety on the family.
Anxiety, you can see service members in their uniforms, is what we saw on countless faces in this line of soldiers, dressed in their fatigues, waiting for the chance to get just a few pounds of free food. This food bank at the Armed Services YMCA in Killeen, Texas, near Fort Hood, has seen a 60% spike in first-time visitors since the government shutdown began. People like Maggie Hisataki and her 3-year-old Melosi now wake up before dawn to stock up. Melosi still in his pajamas. How have the last few weeks been for you with the shutdown?
Very stressful. Our anxiety, wondering when our next paycheck's gonna be or if we're gonna get the next one.
Maggie's husband is in the Army. The Pentagon moved money around in its budget to cover his paycheck, along with roughly 2 million other U.S. military personnel. But officials warn there are no additional funds left for the next round of soldiers' pay in November. Can you go without another paycheck?
No, I don't think any military family really can.
Across the federal government, roughly 1.4 million workers have already gone without pay. More than 750,000 are on furlough. Hundreds of thousands more are deemed essential, including air traffic controllers. Airports from Los Angeles to Dallas to Newark feeling the strain as more and more of those tasked with keeping the skies safe are working without pay and starting to call out sick.
The prospect of going another pay period without pay is weighing on the minds of myself and all the people that I work with.
Pablo Lazaro, a cook at the Smithsonian, now out of work while his museum is closed, is worried about making ends meet too. You might have to find a new job.
A new job. You know, anything. I need to support my family.
Working for years in the shadow of the Capitol, we asked Pablo if he had a message for the members of Congress still deadlocked a few steps away.
Depends what happens over there, depends my job.
What happens down the street at the Capitol directly affects you.
They're going to affect my life. My life, and a lot of people like me.
And people like Simone Wilkes. A single mom in Detroit, her 2 boys, one a curious 8-year-old, the other an energetic 3-year-old, are the light of her life. Your face lights up when you talk about it.
Yes, they're my boys.
But Simone tells me she's now afraid she won't be able to support them without federal food assistance called SNAP, which will run out of money this weekend.
My stomach dropped because I'm already struggling. I'm already stretching food.
Like Simone, roughly 42 million lower-income Americans rely on the program.
Got to come up with a plan so the kids can still eat and still go to school, and me possibly having to pick up another job at night in order for them to eat.
Will there be some days where they will eat and you won't?
Yes, it already has started. It already has started. It has been days where the kids will eat and I'll just survive off water.
You're trying to put on a brave face, but this seems very frightening.
Yes, it is. Many breakdowns at night, yes.
As federal benefits run out, food banks across the country are preparing for a rush.
It's just one more thing added on top of everything else that you're already facing.
Back in Texas, we met Amy George with the Armed Services YMCA, hoping this shutdown ends soon.
Those look good.
They do.
But still helping these soldiers stock up for the long haul.
They're getting prepared for the possibility that a paycheck is not going to show up.
Does it worry you that this shutdown shows no signs of ending?
I think we're concerned like everybody else and very hopeful that it'll end sooner than later.
On Capitol Hill, the gridlock grinds on. Legislation to end the shutdown has failed in the Senate again.
The motion is not agreed to.
And again.
The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to.
And again.
The motion is not agreed to.
More than a dozen votes in total. Democrats say they're holding firm for an extension of expiring Affordable Care Act tax credits to prevent premiums from skyrocketing for some 20 million Americans. Republicans argue they won't negotiate until Democrats vote to reopen the government.
This is kind of where the magic happened.
About 2.5 hours away from the Capitol, we found the exact type of person Democrats say they're fighting for, along with some of the best soul food Richmond, Virginia has to offer.
These recipes are my mom's, my grandma's, my great-grandma's.
Lester Johnson, the owner of Mama J's, has purchased health insurance through Obamacare, also known as the Affordable Care Act, for about half a decade. For himself, his wife, and his 8-year-old daughter who has asthma. If the current tax credits expire, Lester's premiums would soar.
I was like around 13 and some change, so probably about $1,400, give or take.
So it's going to double your premiums?
Doubles, no question.
And while the tax credits expire at the end of the year, open enrollment for the ACA, often called Obamacare, begins in just days, November 1st.
We don't have the option of not having health insurance.
You need health insurance.
We gotta have, not need it, we have to have it.
I can tell you're a tough guy, but I can also tell you're worried.
Big time. Big time. I want people to kind of come together as a group and say, this is how we fix this problem, because people will be impacted on both sides of the aisle, and that's what people need to understand.
More than 1,000 miles away.
Are you done with your book?
As she prepares to take her son to one more food bank today, compromise is exactly what Maggie Hisatake desperately wants too.
I feel like we're in the crossfire of...
You're caught in the middle.
Yeah.
As that political standoff still grips Capitol Hill, the longer this shutdown goes on, the worse the pain will be. And the harder it will become for the Americans we met, feeling powerless to end this stalemate, but forced to live with the consequences.
So many feel that they are in the crossfire. Our thanks to Jay O'Brien for that. Coming up, Oscar-nominated actor Jesse Eisenberg has decided to donate something very important to him. It's not money. We'll tell you what it is and why he's doing it. And ABC News 2020 co-anchor Deborah Roberts is here. She's out with a new book, Sisters Loved and Treasured, Stories of Unbreakable Bonds. And you won't want to miss this. We'll be joined by my own sister in studio. Stay with us. A recall on a widely used blood pressure medicine, Billie Eilish's tough words for billionaires, and the rush to save a stray dog. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. The FDA is recalling more than 500,000 bottles of a blood pressure medication, saying they may contain high levels of potentially cancer-causing chemicals. The agency said prazosin hydrochloride pills in various dosages with expiration dates ranging from October of 2025 through February of 2027 were affected. As the 2025 World Series heads back to Canada for Friday's Game 6, the Toronto Blue Jays need just one more victory to win the Fall Classic. Game 5 was historic with back-to-back home runs by Davis Schneider and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the first time that has happened in World Series history. The Toronto team is hoping they can keep the momentum. They're on the cusp of their first championship in more than 30 years. Singer-songwriter Billie Eilish says she's donating $11.5 million from her tour last year to charitable organizations, and she's calling on billionaires to do the same. At an event for the Wall Street Journal, the chart-topping artist said that there were some in the crowd that had a lot more money than her and questioned why they weren't giving more.
Love you all, but there's a few people in here that have a lot more money than me. And, if you're a billionaire, why are you a billionaire? No hate, but yeah, give your money away, shorties. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Sean Diddy Combs arrived at the New Jersey federal prison where he will serve his 4-year sentence, multiple sources told ABC News. Meanwhile, Combs is asking a federal appeals court to expedite his appeal of his conviction on 2 prostitution-related charges, arguing he could finish his prison sentence before his appeal is heard on a normal timetable. Combs is appealing his conviction and his sentence. Actor Jesse Eisenberg announced that he's donating a kidney to an anonymous recipient. The actor said in an interview that the decision was a no-brainer and that the procedure is scheduled for December. Eisenberg said that he regularly donates blood and wanted to go the extra step to help someone in need by becoming a living donor. According to the Mayo Clinic, about 5,000 living kidney donations are performed each year in the U.S. A quick-thinking police officer in Atlantic City, New Jersey, braved chilly water to rescue an injured dog. Police body camera footage and video from the Atlantic City Fire Department captured Officer Matt Schmidt's heroic efforts. As he arrived, the stray dog had escaped from animal control and jumped into a nearby bay. Schmidt removed his weapon and shoes before plunging into the cold water. He swam about 100 yards against the current to reach the dog and safely bring it back to shore. The dog was treated and later reunited with its owner. The bond of sisterhood shapes us, grounds us, and if we're lucky, remains with us through life. In the new book, Sisters Loved and Treasured, Stories of Unbreakable Bonds, ABC News' own Deborah Roberts brings together more than 50 voices from Viola Davis to Octavia Spencer, who through essays and conversation share stories about the gift of having a sister by your side. And joining us now is ABC News 2020 co-anchor, my friend and New York Times bestselling author, Deborah Roberts, and my very own sister, Whitney, my older sister by 6 years, mom of 2, school social worker. As you know, I can ask some hard questions. I'm going to grill you. No, I'm not actually. I'm gonna let Deborah Roberts grill us together.
Because I didn't get a chance to interview you for the book.
That's right. And so we'll get into that in a moment. But first, let me ask you a few questions. Yes. Obviously, I know that you grew up with 6 sisters, often sharing one bathroom. I cannot imagine what that house in Georgia was like.
We grew up, yes.
But give us a sense of why you were intrigued enough by the concept of sisterhood that you wanted to write a book about it.
You know, they always say write what you know, and you and I have talked about that because you've written books. And I wrote a book about teachers and the importance of teachers and so forth. And when I was thinking about another topic, of course, I grew up with sisters. I just sort of take it for granted. 6 sisters, a lot of estrogen in the house. I never thought that much about it. But as we have grown older, some of us have drifted. I have lost 2 sisters. I've lost a couple of brothers as well. And I think now we focus on each other in ways that are a little bit different. And I was a little bit, I think, wistful about the fact that we have sort of drifted. And what is that? And does that mean I'm not close with my sisters? And does that mean maybe I'm not a good sister? And then I read a study, a couple of studies actually have come out that said having a sister is actually good for your emotional well-being. It boosts your mental health and positivity and all of that. And I just was intrigued.
And I felt that emotional bond. I don't even know if you know, we haven't even talked about it since, but in the summer before I was doing my first ever presidential debate on the Democratic presidential debate. And I was really uptight, and we were together during that summer. And right before she left, she ended up in tears, and she was like, do the damn thing. And something moved me just to feel that support.
I want to start off asking you two what I ask everybody else. And I loved that women would just sort of let their guard down and they would just start talking about things they never really talked about. And I'm wondering from both of you what your earliest memory was of having a sister and kind of realizing that there was something a little different in your life about a sister.
You want to start?
Yeah.
Well, that 6-year age difference was powerful. I'm used to having mom and dad all to myself. And for Linsey to come bopping along, it completely changed, obviously, the dynamic within the household. So much so that I became a little bit mischievous and resentful and attention-seeking.
I've heard it.
But at the same time, you know, it was nice to be able to have a sibling, to be able to help mom diaper and help mom feed, and, you know, just to connect with, because for the longest time, I had been literally begging my parents to have another child.
And I've heard that story many, many times. I mean, the age difference really makes a difference. What about you, Linsey? What were your memories?
Well, one, I never even knew that you had been begging mom and dad for a sibling.
See, that's what's been so beautiful about this, revelations that you never knew.
But I think kind of like the little anecdote that I shared earlier, there have been so many times, tough times, just to know that there is that person. We've dealt with some things together where it was we know each other as much as we are not always together. We're not constantly on the phone or texting or whatever, but I know she's always there in my corner, and I think that you feel the same about me.
I love that. And that was the common theme, I think. I mean, obviously there are lots of sisters who don't get along. They've had estrangements, things have happened. But for the most part, even those who I talked to in the book who may not necessarily get along all that well, they felt that there's always something there. You're always somehow in my corner, and I can sort of always trust you. Qualities that you admire in each other, Whitney?
Linsey's unwavering desire to conquer the world. Whether she's delivering the news, writing a children's book, planning and hosting a holiday party for the underprivileged, traveling in the globe and running it at the same time, Linsey's actions are deliberate and purposeful.
Let me ask you guys a couple of rapid fire questions, if I may, because I always love rapid fire. Who's got the best sense of humor?
Wow, that's
Both of you are funny in your own way?
So wait, let me tell you a funny little story. There was security with me for a little bit, and I was talking about this bodyguard, and I was like, he's so fun to be around, and he's so nice, and my sister just belts out Whitney Houston's, and I will always love you from The Bodyguard, you know, and I still sometimes will just think about that moment and just crack up.
So you both have a, you both have a good sense of humor.
I think it's kind of even, yeah.
Who's more punctual?
I am.
I had a feeling.
No question.
And lastly, I just want to read a quote that you wrote in the book. To have a sister by your side is to experience life to its fullest with all its laughter and trials. Who else can say they were there during the most trying of times, offering both solace and strength? Talk about what that means to you.
To me, when I think back, I mean, at the end of the day, we can all have BFFs, you know, people who have been in our lives. I have good friends I've known since college. But my sisters were there in the bathroom laughing with us when we were, you know, growing up, or if we had some struggles in life, we were there. Or if somebody had a big disappointment or a great victory, they were the ones. Or if somebody broke their arm and you were the one who pushed her and that's why she broke her arm. Those were the people who were there with you when the foundation was being built. And there is something special in that. And I think if nothing else, I hope people will read this book, and women who maybe don't have the best relationships or might just feel like they do, but they wonder. They might feel a little bit more, they might feel closer, and they might treasure their relationship with their sister just a little bit more.
I just have to say, this has been so special. Thank you, Deborah.
Of course.
Just, I don't know, just generating the conversation.
Yeah.
Whitney, Deborah, thank you so much. Sisters Loved and Treasured, Stories of Unbreakable Bonds by ABC News 2020 co-anchor and New York Times bestselling author Deborah Roberts, now available wherever you buy your books. Scan that QR code for more. And you can see more of Deborah on 2020 Friday nights and hear more on the 2020 podcast that she hosts called The After Show. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch those episodes on Hulu and Disney+. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.